Hello and welcome. It's episode 6 of Road to Superbowl, and here we are today with New York Football Giants. And this is a team that I'm probably higher on than a lot of you guys are there. And I'm just excited to watch. And it's not only because they have my favorite quarterback in the NFL, in Russell Wilson, it's also because this defensive line, oh my god, I'm so excited to talk about them. But before we do that, I would appreciate if you could leave a like, leave a comment. You can follow me on Twitter, on TikTok, whenever you want to. I'm there. There's going to be a lot of content coming your way. I intend to do full 32 teams preview for the season, and then every single week of the season there will be something coming your way. So if there's something you'd like to listen to, please subscribe, leave a comment. It would be very much appreciated. But let's go for the fun part. Let's go talk about this team. Okay? So, we start as usual, taking a look at their draft. And at number 3, taking Abdul Carter to me is absolutely a slam dunk pick, A plus. And perhaps you would be like, okay, but this was clear. How do you give it an A plus when this was like a clear best player left on the board? I'm like, because there was so much talk about Shadow Sanders here, and I was like, if they pick Shadow here, I'm like my interest about this team would go from here to just like here. Nothing against Shadow, it just would not match at all how I would feel, like in terms of value. Like it would be such a stupid pick in my opinion. So they go and they get Abdul Carter, and yeah, I told you guys, I'm so excited to talk about this D-line, and Abdul Carter is obviously a huge reason why. Then they trade up to get Jackson Dart, and to me, we will spend some time here. It's still one of the most weird picks of this entire draft, in a sense that I feel like there is such a slim margin in which this pick actually works out for the Giants that trading up for this guy just doesn't make sense to me. And this is not necessarily a hate on Jackson Dart. To me, he was quarterback 3. Of quarterback 4, I had him behind Tyler Schaff and Shadow Sanders. But in terms of how he fits this offense, in terms of, with Brian Dable, how he could work, I actually don't have way too many problems with this fit. And like 25th, not a huge problem, not a huge one. Where I do have a problem is I think he fits very well in Brian Dable's offense. He is a project, so he's not like a starter right now in my eyes. And what are the chances that Brian Dable is still a head coach of the Giants at the end of this year? Not big. Like when you look at Vegas, pretty much everyone over-unders for this team has like 5 or 5.5 wins. I'm like, if Brian Dable goes 5-12, does he has a job? I don't think so. If he goes 4-13, does he has a job? I don't think so. And even if so, if he goes with this, they're going to have like top 5, top 7 pick in next year's draft, which should be much better in terms of QB than this one was. Also, there should be Archie Manning in this draft, and it's going to be super hard to sell towards the franchise that like we are not trying to get Archie Manning because we have Jackson Dart. It's going to super hard to sell it. And in case Brian Dable does not have his job and you end up still with top 5, top 7 pick, it's so simple for new GM or new head coach to just like, okay, I want to start with my own QB because they did not invest super much into Jackson Dart. It's still like just end of the first round pick. So like there is just such a slim margin for him to work out. I think it requires this team to just somehow go 7-10, Brian Dable keeping his job, and Jackson Dart showing enough promise, whether it's as a backup and like on the practice field or with like some late year appearances, that they're okay. Like we go with Jackson Dart as our starting QB for next year. We will put a trust of our jobs on his shoulders. Like how many things does have to happen for Jackson Dart to actually have like really good opportunity to succeed here. Not to mention, like, he's not like superb, not cannot miss on prospect. Like, he's still, I would say, like kind of an average. In usual drafts, probably more like a second round QB, because this one was pretty shallow behind Cam Ward, so he ended up like going late in first. So the odds of him working out are just way too slim for this pick actually making sense to me. Like, I was surprised by this. I don't like it. I had a lot of time to reflect on this, and I'm still standing strong with my analysis, because I don't think it's fair for Jackson. I feel like this is actually quite a bad landing spot in terms of how big of a chance he has in terms of working out. And this to me is kind of similar to Michael Penix's situation last year, situation in which the moves that the front office is making, or perhaps it's coming from even upper levels, does not match very well with what they do in terms of their future. Because to me, like, you could say, well, Falcons are happy that they have Michael Penix now. Well, okay, understand. Wouldn't they be happier if they didn't have Kirk Cousins on $45 million a year? And like, again, if you go for Penix, you should, in my eyes, never sign Kirk Cousins to the deal. If you go for Kirk Cousins, you should never draft Michael Penix, even though you would be like, okay, but Kirk Cousins, like, we have question marks about. No. Like, that's just, in a world where there is cap space, when you have limited resources, this is just a wasteful approach that does not get good results in my eyes. And to me, Jackson Dart kind of feels similar to that, not necessarily the same, but similar. And here is not because they had some great free agent acquisition for a long-term contract, though I like their free agent acquisition of QBs, but they are both one-year contracts. But it's more like, how should this work for Jackson Dart as a starting QB for this franchise? And there's just such a slim, narrow window that I don't think it's just worth going for this at this year's draft. So, not necessarily about Jackson and his value. I mean, for other franchises, if you could guarantee me Brian Daboll has his job for next season, and you kind of can guarantee me that they don't have top 5 pick, so there is not this overwhelming pressure to try to get Archie Manning or take probably better prospects that are going to be behind him next year's draft, then I would probably give this a B or like a B minus. Like, I think it's kind of an adequate value. But in terms of how this exists in like this universe where, like I say, you have to guarantee me something that has, I don't know, 10-15% in real world for this to even be like an okay pick. Yeah, that to me is still an F. Okay, enough talk about Jackson Dart. I wish him nothing but the best. I truly do. This is much more about the landing spot and how this just does not match where the franchise is at, in my opinion. But let's go and take a look at the rest of this draft. And let's be fair, I really love this draft beside the Jackson's pick, because Darius Alexander is, I would say, my top 3, top 5 pick in this draft in terms of how much I like it for the franchise. And I was higher on Darius than, I would say, general consensus were. And to me, part of it was like, I'm not opposed towards him being an older prospect, because like, if you look at the statistics, like how many players that you take second or third round do actually sign up their like big contract with the team that originally drafted them? It's like 20-30%, something like that. And if that's the case, don't you rather go for a guy that for those 4 years that you have him signed for, he's going to give you really nice floor, because in theory he's just much more ready to play in the NFL, so he's not like project that you don't expect to play this year and perhaps next year he's going to give you something. And at the same time, there is still a reasonable upside that and the end of his rookie deal, he's going to be 28, 29, perhaps entering that year of the NFL season. Like, he can still be in his semi-prime or even prime for that one big contract that you can give him. So I absolutely love this pick, as well as the landing spot, because I was advocating for Giants to draft someone next to Dexter Lawrence for 2 years at least as of right now. And I think Darius Alexander is exactly the guy they needed. I mean, obviously, if you could spend first round pick here, it's probably going to net like better results than Darius, but like for third round pick, this is tremendous value for a position that was low-key a weakness of this team. And not in the sense that your entire defensive line would be bad, because like if you have Dexter, I could be playing next to him and it's still going to be good. But because you have Dexter, you should be taking advantage of that opportunity. And I think this is it. Then Cam Scatterbo in fourth round, really nice value for this guy. I think he's going to compete from the get-go with Tyron Tracy and Devin Singletary for number one running back spot in this offense. And I really feel like this is a guy that unfortunately is going to push Devin Singletary, who kind of was my guy in last year free agency, that I like this move. But as of right now, it feels like he's just going to become this good journeyman veteran, but his upside is just not high enough for him to be starting running back in the NFL in modern days. With the rest of the draft, I kind of liked Marcus Hembo pick. It was not like some tremendous value that perhaps some people would think about this, but as a project and really like freakishly big offensive tackle that you kind of can put on the depth chart and like let him develop for 1 year, I think that's pretty good. And Thomas Fidone, they have several tight ends, yet they don't really have a guy that you would be excited about. And I'm not saying Thomas is that guy. Like at the depth chart, he's now like 5th tight end listed, but I think he could make a team perhaps over some of the veterans here. And actually, I think this was a nice value. So overall, huge fan of this draft with like one major exception. Now, let's shift towards how this team is shaping up offensively. And we start with offensive line and quarterback. So, do I start with Russell Wilson? Yeah, let's go for it. So you guys could be like, oh, he's your favorite. He's a former Seahawk. You love Seahawk. You love Russell Wilson. Yes, and yes. At the same time, there are some facts that I don't know whether people are just happy to like push down, or they feel like this is not a sexy signing or whatever, but you are getting, I would say, from 16th to 22nd best QB in the league, depending on who ranks these guys, for $11 million a year. I mean, how can you say no to that? Especially in the situation where Giants were at. Like, I don't know. Like, this is effing good deal. I mean, Saints 2 years ago paid $45 million a year for pretty much, I would say, a guy of a similar quality. Giants 2-3 years ago paid, I would say, even for guys of worse quality, around $40 million a year. So getting a veteran for 1 year that, if you are brand able, you take him to try to save your job, and perhaps like the Jackson Dart slim window like happens and kind of exists because of Russell Wilson in partial, because if you would starting Jack Dart as of right now, like the chances of you going 7 wins, 8 wins are like much slimmer than they are right now. So is that like for guys that don't think Russell is starting level QB, I mean, I don't know what to say to you. Like let's just go with PFF numbers, which are not like good. Like they do have some flaws. I'm not going to deny that, but it just would be really bad to just discard them. And for example, for last year, for Russell, he was 15th best ranked QB by PFF, just behind guys like Jalen Hurts, over guys like Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford. And again, like I don't think this is this godlike everything like measured by ranking, but for a guy to have this good of numbers on a team that best wide receiver was Moodish George Pickens. The offensive line was work in progress and hampered by injuries. They could not necessarily run the ball. And what should have been the strength of the Steelers, which is their defense, anytime they kind of faced a good opponent, they were getting vertebrated on. So I would really say that Russell Wilson played like 16 to 20ish best QB in the league, and I kind of have no reason to expect him to not be in, I would say, same area this year. Perhaps with some of the young talent like Bryce Young, like GMaty, they could overcome him. Fair enough. But still, for 11 millions to get that, I don't know what more we want. So I'm really high on this signing. I think it's tremendous value for the Giants. In terms of offensive line, it's really dependent on Andrew Thomas staying healthy, because the rest of it is like some veteran guys that are playing solid football, but they are all kind of replacement level starters. You also have young guy John Michael Schmitz that after disastrous year one, he had solid year two, but still a lot to be desired. So not necessarily the biggest upside about this entire group, and Andrew Thomas kind of holds this together. Reminds me of 49ers offensive line with Trent Williams, but even there were like a second guy that you can trust. You know, Colton McKivitz, Brandel at some point could have been that. Aaron Banks maybe someday. Dominic Puni last year, of course. Here it's kind of much harder for this team. I would say like they hoped John Ryan could be that last year. He kind of wasn't. So they really need Andrew Thomas to stay healthy for this offensive line to be functional. If not, I'm worried. I'm worried, and obviously with Andrew history record of injuries, yeah, I'm worried. So definitely, if there is, I would say, one player going down for me to really like everything kind of falls apart, I would say it's Andrew Thomas for this team. There's another guy. We'll talk about him soon enough. In terms of backups, Evan Neal, there is some potential to like try him as a guard. You know, this idea of like big tackles not working out, let's move them towards guards like Mekhi Becton. And yeah, I mean, why not? Like in terms of run blocking, he actually was quite efficient last year. And perhaps if you could swing him next to Andrew Thomas, who is really good pass protector, you can kind of balance this out, that this could work out. You know, the question is, like, is he going to overcome John Runyan? Do you just try to go for the potential upside? But it's probably too late, given that he is in a final year of his deal, so it has to earn it. And I'm not sure that he's there, or that this coaching staff would trust him enough that in a year where they have to save their job, they would be like, okay, let's go for this project. You kind of never played there. Yeah, let's put you over a veteran. I don't really think that's going to happen. In terms of other backups, James Hudson, I was not a huge fan of this signing. I feel like he's overpaid. To me, he's kind of a guy that should be getting like veteran minimum in my eyes, around $2 million a year, not 5. And they also have Marcus Mbow. I hope he doesn't see a field this year because it's way too early for him. Stone Forsythe, another veteran. Also have Joshua Isodo. So they have several guys that, you know, at worst could probably take a field, but overall I have 6 guys that I'm sort of confident with. Evan Neal, like with quite a question mark. So Andrew Thomas, you need to stay healthy, man. You really need to. In terms of backups QB, there's Jameis Winston still. Like they signed him for a very cheap deal. And like I think that this could work even like for next season. Him backing Jackson Dart, that could be a nice deal. Or it could be a trade piece for some of the franchises if someone goes down around the trade deadline for a couple of weeks and they will need a starter that, you know, on his best day he could look like top 10 guy in the league. On his worst day, you are wondering how the hell he's not playing in the Czech League of American football. Yeah, we have that in Czech Republic. So yeah, that's Jameis. Like he's exciting. Like I give him that. Like When Browns went from him to DTR last year, I was like, yeah, I'm not watching Browns anymore because it was just kind of boring. Like they could do nothing on offense. So if you don't like him at his best, you you don't if you don't like him at his worst, you don't deserve him at his best. So that's kind of Jameis Winston. Now let's take a look at the weaponry of this team. And this is kind of a one-man crew in my eyes in Malik Neighbors, because he was a stud year one, and I actually think he's going to even improve upon that. And they absolutely needed to hit on him. And last year, when there was a talk, should the Giants draft a QB last year, I was like, hell not. Like, one, you still have Daniel Jones. Like, maybe there is some way that this is going to work. And B, like, you just don't have weaponry for anyone to just lift this offense up. You need guys to catch a ball. And Mike Neighbors was absolutely just that. Really a guy that already is number one, that you can trust and has definitely potential to put himself up to elite status as early as this season. And I also think like some of the moon balls and Malik Neighbors, they can work out pretty nicely. So the connection between him and Russell, yeah, that could be pretty good. Then at number 2, you have Darius Slayton, which I think he's borderline good starter. I have him really on the edge between like decent starter and good starter. I think he's one of the worst number 2s in the league. I don't think he's bad. I also don't think this contract is some outrageous, because like where the wide receiver market is at, like I think this kind of just how he should be paid. So he's a good player, like solid player. It's just like it feels like he's your second best weapon behind Mike Neighbors, and that's a problem. Like, if Darius Slayton is your number 2 wide receiver, you should have better tight ends than you have. So here I was like a little bit surprised that perhaps they were on the market for George Pickens. He had a really nice connection with Russell Wilson, and in a year when you try to save your job and like perhaps figure out the weapons for your quarterback of the future, and let's say you add George Pickens into the mix and it works, you can pay him, because like Malik Neighbors, you have cost control for him for next 3 years, Jackson Dart for next 4 years. So you are not paying your QB, you are not paying your wide receiver 1, so you can pay your number 2 wide receiver. So I felt like them not entering the mix for George Pickens, or perhaps they did, he just didn't like went here. It's a little bit surprise to me. If I had to choose like the package that they sent for Jackson Dart, or like having George Pickens and some picks, I'm pretty sure where I would go. But even in like the scenario with Jackson Dart, I would really like have George Pickens in there. But overall, they decided not to, or they didn't have a chance to bring him in. Besides Slayton and Wandale Robinson, he was kind of force-fed last year. Almost 100 receptions, but like he is very inefficient with it. Not even 700 yards. It's pretty bad. So, when it comes to wide receiver threes, this is also like leaves a lot to be desired. Again, like if you enter George Pickens into the mix, he's your number 2, Slayton number 3, and Wandale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, who's like kind of a backup for this room, is your number 4 guys. Yeah, now we're talking about actually pretty solid room. As it stands, again, if Malik Neighbors goes down, they have a huge problem on this offense. Because when you look at the rest of the weapons, it's like they have a lot of tight ends that can do several different things, and that's probably the best you can say about them. It's Chris Manhertz, it's Daniel Bellinger, it's Greg Dulcich, and there's one guy that perhaps there's a potential in Theo Johnson, but I have not necessarily seen too much last year to really be sold on this idea that he's kind of this next young tight end that's going to be a legit weapon for this team. So, I mean, kind of good thing that you have Russell Wilson, who doesn't really use his tight ends that much, right? So, yeah, okay. So, again, like, I would much rather, like, not talk about investing in tight ends here, but, George Pickens, he was there. I really feel you should have gone for him. In terms of running backs, Tyron Tracy, Devin Singletary, and Cam Scatterbo are kind of in the mix. I don't really expect too much from Eddie Gray. If you like put a gun to my head and said like who is the best running back for like one drive this year, I would still hand the ball to Devin Singletary, but I think he is going to be very quickly phased out of this running game. Tyron Tracy, a lot of people are very excited about him. I'm not that much. Like, I did not necessarily see a great running back prospect last year. There is a good part about him, and that this was kind of his like second full year as a running back, so he still has a lot of room to improvement in theory. But again, like, this team kind of needs a guy right now. So, does the improvement going to happen this year? If so, well, they might have something. If not, like, I think Cam Scatterbo is here to really challenge him for the job. Overall, if you look at this overall group of weapons, we talk about Theo Johnson, Jalen Hyatt, without Malik Neighbors, I would have no doubts that it's the worst group of weapons. I think Malik kind of saves it to be, 28 group of weapons, which kind of sucks for this team, because I don't feel like one more good guy, especially George Pickens, if he was available, would kind of lift this up to be reasonable group of weapons, especially like when you see connection with Russell and George last year. I felt like there was kind of something that should have been explored by this front office. Overall, how do I feel about this offense? If Brian Daboll makes this, it sounds unbelievable. Like, if they make it a top half offense, like, he has to be saved. If it's like top 20 offense, I think you should have really good discussion about like keeping him, kind of no matter where you end up in terms of actual wins and losses, because there is not much talent here. And even for me, as much as I like Russell Wilson, I still feel like he is in that, like average starter in the league, or slightly below average, and the cast around him, doesn't fill me with so much hope. So the offense should not be story for this team, and if it is, then it's once again great job by Brian Daboll or great job by Russell. We'll see. But now towards what should be the storyline for New York Giants, and it's this defensive line. And this is one case where I'm like super mad at myself that I just try to keep this the same way for every single team, because there really needs, like, for this team I really feel like, there needs to be 5-man defensive line, because I was so happy that the reports from the camp came in a way that they will try to construct a lot of what this defensive line is going to do with like 5-man front and how it should look like. Dexter as a nose tackle, Darius Alexander and Abdul Carter next to him, and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau on the edge. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you one thing. This is such a problem for every single offensive line out there. Like, I'm so excited to watch this, because one, even at its floor, which I'm judging the players as they are right now, I think this is the best defensive line in football. I mean, there are probably some lines that you can call up and, challenge. I would give my crown towards these guys. And to imagine that there is so much room to go. I mean, Darius, rookie, Abdul, rookie, and I think Kayvon Thibodeau could have a next level with his game. It's just effing scary. And just imagine this 5-man front with Dexter as a nose tackle. You have to double Dexter Lawrence. Like, if you leave Dexter Lawrence against your center one-on-one, you should be out of the job. Like, Dexter is going to eat him like a pancake. Like, man, you don't want to do that. Like, especially if you have like more athletic, not size center. It's just, it's going to be an ugly, ugly scene. And, okay, so you double Dexter Lawrence. Now you have 4 guys that you need to block. Okay, let's say you're trying to block with 6, so 5 offensive linemen and 1 tight end. It means Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau are getting one-on-one. That does not sound like a recipe for success, right? So do you double Brian Burns as well? Now, still Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau gets one-on-one, and you have 7 guys trying to protect your QB. That leaves you only with 3 guys running routes. And, perhaps last year, with the secondary of the Giants, we will get to that, that could be a recipe for success, but they've invested there. So, I'm so excited to watch it, because this defensive front, it could be something we have not seen for a while in the league. If really Abdul Carter, I think he could be what Jared Verse was last year. Not necessarily in terms of play style, but how impactful he is going to be. And this could legit be defensive line that at the end of the year I have elite starter next to 2 amazing starters, next to important starter, next to good starter. How do you stop that? How? And even for great offensive line, this is a problem. But there is a lot of average to below average offensive line, or the average, obviously there's average units, but okay, mediocre offensive line. And how do you stop this? They are going to be such a pain in the ass to play against that. My God. And why am I so excited about this? Don't I like to watch offense? I do, but I really feel like with the rules being so much shifted in the ways of offense, I really would appreciate special defensive units, and that could, kind of stand its ground against every rule changes that goes against them, and really say yeah, we are going to wreck your game, and good effing luck. And I think this defensive line has that potential, and just makes me so excited. And that's why I'm so much in love with Darius Alexander in this pick, because low-key, even leaving him one-on-one is trouble. That's how high I'm on him, because he could be legit impact year 1. And boy, the thing is, there is some rotation as well for this defensive line. They've signed Roy Robertson Harris, who, as a starter, no, but as a rotational piece, yeah, I like that. You also have Chancey Golston, you have DJ Davidson. There are some pieces. There's Victor Dimukeje as well. There are some pieces for this defensive line to rotate around. That again, if you feel okay, finally, let's catch a breather. You can't really catch breathers against Chancey Golston. He's going to take advantage of if you are flanking. So, man, dude, this has to be the storyline for the Giants. This has to be it, man. These guys wrecking offensive lines, making highlights after highlights, and just be a force that I'm not sure you can contain for a game. Even the best offensive lines, I think there's going to be drives in which they will look like, let's say, schoolboys. Of course, it depends on the health. If you don't have Dexter Lawrence, for example, suddenly you don't necessarily have that great nose tackle presence, and then you can slide up your matchups in some ways. You can also say, well, Abdul Carter doesn't have to hit year 1. This is going to be perhaps a different position that he is used to. Sorry, my cat demands attention. So yeah, of course, if they're still healthy, this has to be it, man. And the good thing about the Giants and this defense is it does not stop there. Because in terms of linebackers, this is actually quite an exciting duo. Bobby Okereke, around top 10, top 15 linebacker in the league. And a guy that, when he was brought here, it was kind of actually the shining example of let some other team kind of develop your linebacker, that sign him to a reasonable contract, and he's going to be your very nice starter. That's what Bobby Okereke is. And in terms of Micah McFadden, he had pretty piss poor year one, but last year he actually really stepped up and slide into LB2 spot with Gracious, and next to Bobby, like behind this defensive line, he's poised for another huge leap in my eyes. So really, if you look at this, you should be pretty damn excited. And the good thing is, it does not stop there, because unlike last year, there's actually a secondary for the Giants to count on. It's not we have 20 young guys and let them figure it out. We actually have legit players. So we start with Andrew Phillips, who is already top 8, top 7 slot corner in the league, and guy that just stunned me. Like, he was so effing good, and nice hit by this front office, who actually low-key are doing quite a good job in terms of drafts, like last 2 years, and I would say even this year. Drew Phillips, totally a guy that I'm excited about. I think he's going to be very soon regarded as top 5 slot or even higher in the league. Then, in terms of number 1 corner, they clearly thought like, well, we wanted Deontay Banks to be that. It did not work out. Let's be fair. He's not that guy, at least not yet. We need number 1 corner. And is Positional Analysis number 1 corner established in the league? Not yet, but he has potential to be. And as much as you paid kind of premium for a guy that to me is superb number 2, but one of the worst number 1s in the league, it's still a massive upgrade from where you were last year. And with him stepping into the number 1 outside corner job, it allows Cordell Flott to be your number 2 guy, Deontay Banks to fight for his position, and it kind of slides everyone towards where they should be, and there's still theoretical upside for both Flott and Banks to really, and of course Adibo, that this secondary or this cornerback room could actually be a legit strength. But as of right now, you at least made it that it's not a weakness of this team. And all you need to do, draft Andrew Phillips very nicely and pay, hefty chunk to Positional Analysis, but I'm absolutely okay with that. And obviously, last summer, you let go Xavier McKinney and kind of entrusted this role to Tyler Nubin. And I thought that he fought with grace, that he really stepped up and was pretty solid as a safety rookie. But, next to him, it was mediocre play. Now you have been able to attract Javon Holland, who, as of free agent signing, top 10 easily in my eyes in terms of value, because I think you got him below market value. There was some reports about him not being the best influence in the locker room. Also, he didn't have the best year last season, but he to me still is, I would still say safely, to be really safe, top 15 safety in the league, but I would really say top 10. And to have this guy, for a price that some other teams paid for like good starters, to get someone that is amazing in my eyes for 3 years, I would understand if he went like for 1 year on this average type of like 15 minutes a year. If it was like 1 year prove it deal after not a great season with Miami and some of the reports, and it's like, okay, this is my prove it deal. But to actually have him locked up for 3 years, that to me is a massive deal. So suddenly the secondary, I'm not saying it's some great secondary, but you have great slot, you have corners, outside corners that should not be a problem, and you have pretty good safety duo that could low-key be top 5 in the league if Tyler Nubin takes a good step up. And you combine it with pretty good linebacker room and best defensive line in football in my eyes, and you still have tremendous potential. Like, this is still a young defensive group. And suddenly, are we talking about Giants potentially being, I don't know, even the best defense in football? I think it's within the realm of possibility, man, because there is not a glaring weakness and there are legit strengths towards this defense. So I'm really excited to see them play. They will have their hands full because, one, this offense is not something you write home about, and two, they are in the division with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, with Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, and AJ Brown, and Saquon Barkley, and of course Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin. Hopefully they will figure it out in Washington. Yeah, they will have their hands full, but they are definitely equipped to handle this. Like, the improvement that this defense made from last year towards this year, it's just tremendous. Like, from bad secondary towards at least average, from good defensive line, like great defensive line, to the best, and from like linebacker single in Bobby Okereke to actually legit linebacker duo in him and McFadden. I'm excited, and I cannot wait to see like these guys match up against Eagles, against Commanders. It should be one hell of the matchups. With that being said, let's check some of the depth. There's not much that I would write home about in terms of secondary and linebackers. So in case of injuries, I think they probably should look at some of the veterans out there. Not super worried about Dane Belton, but definitely a little bit in terms of the outside corners. I don't really have a huge faith in Deonta Banks to be a full-time starter unless something really clicks for him. Overall, pretty kind of boring offense, even though I have my guy Russell Wilson, I have Malik Neighbors there. But with Brian Abel, I think this could be offense that does just enough for this defense to absolutely cook. Now, let's take a look at the schedule before we wrap things up. And boy oh boy, how is this the schedule of a third place team, team that was fourth place team, and the team that had a number 3 pick in the draft? I'm just I don't know. I really don't know. So they will start at Commanders, then at Cowboys, hosting Chiefs and Chargers, then at Saints, and hosting Eagles. I mean, they absolutely need to beat the Saints and somehow sneak one more win. I think at Cowboys is probably their best chance. For me, the team they will need a lot of pancakes. This defensive line is going to wreak havoc for them to, at least go out 2-4, because this is a brutal schedule. And the thing is, it doesn't stop there, because the second part of the year is even worse, man. At Broncos, at Eagles, at home you have 49ers and the Bears, which is probably the two most winnable matchups that you have, which is pretty scary, because then you are going to the Lambeau and hosting Lions. For Brian Daboll, he's the storyline here, because to me he's kind of an unlucky son of a gun, because year one he makes tremendous job with Daniel Jones, makes him a legit Super Bowl quarterback. They make it to the playoffs, they win one game, he is head coach of the year, and it kind of sways this front office to actually pay Daniel Jones, which, surprise, surprise, it turns out to be a mistake. And, Daniel Jones not only regresses, but also has injuries. So they are hampered with his contract and with his mediocre play for 2 more years. And then in a year that's all about his job, he gets this schedule. He gets this schedule as, a team that if Drew Lock does not go crazy in one game that he has game of his life, they had number 1 pick. If he doesn't go crazy, that one game, I don't know who it was against, it was week 16, week 17, something like that, they would have number 1 pick. Still, they had number 3 pick, and they have this schedule that if you look at the most winnable games out of their first 12 weeks, it's at Saints, at Cowboys, and probably someone would say no, because they would be higher on Cowboys than I am, and then at home against the Bears or against the 49ers. It's how is that possible? How is that possible? And that, again, this was kind of known where you made all the decisions. And that's where I'm again, do you keep Brian Daboll by this stretch? If they are 4-8, do you keep Brian Daboll? I'm really unsure, and I would say even 4-8 is kind of a good job. It really is in offensive league when you kind of don't have great offense. So do you keep him? And if not, like, we talk about Jackson Dart and his future. So I think it's bleak because you don't keep him, you have a real nice pick, blah, blah, blah. We already talked about this. So let's imagine they keep him, and the last stretch, like, it gets slightly easier, but at Patriots, not really easy. Hosting Commanders, hosting Vikings, at Raiders, home against Cowboys. Like, even 3-2 sounds like, yeah, probably not favorites to actually be 3-2. But I would really say this could be a time of the year where this defense is just legit, almost unstoppable at some cases. And for me, the storyline would be Abdul Carter that could have similar finish to Jared Verse, where his numbers and his production on the field is actually not only defensive rookie of the year, but actually defensive player of the year worthy. Because I really feel like he could get there by the end of this year. So overall, I do have them finishing 7-10, but it's really hard, man. Like, this schedule is brutal. So I do understand why the line is around 5.5. I really do, because this is effing hard. I'm just like very excited about this team. I do trust Brian Dable to be able to work something out with this offense, with Russell Wilson in connection. And I really do believe that this defense could be insane. So overall, I'm excited to watch the Giants. As well, I'm a little bit scared about did they really thought everything through with Jackson Dart selection, keeping Brian Dable at his job, with what's in store for them in terms of schedule. Let's hope. Giants fans, I hope you enjoyed it. All of the other fans, I hope you enjoyed it too. And I hope you have a nice day before we see each other with next team in this division. You can make a guess whether I will reveal Commanders or Eagles first.